Hello VC, back again with another quick video, and I want to do a short video on how record labels and record owners can really screw up some artistic vision. So if you're curious, stick around for more. Alright guys, so I had a box of records which I started to clean. Unfortunately I haven't had a whole lot of time to spin records, but I have been spinning a few, and one of the records I did purchase got me to thinking about something. So I got this at my local record store. This is Jam Session by Sidney Bechet. Wonderful, clever, isn't it? So, if you guys aren't familiar with Sidney Bechet, he predates Louis Armstrong by a little bit, only a couple of years. But he's a clarinetist, alto saxophonist, and really, initially, he was not that big in the United States, and he really made his claim to fame in Europe. And Sidney Bechet, this gentleman right here, was deported from France and the UK. So, you know, this is really a guy that's really willing to fight about the littlest things. And if you've seen the Ken Burns documentary Jazz, there's a short segment about him getting in a disagreement with a fellow musician about playing the wrong note. Somebody claimed that he played the wrong note, and Sidney Bechet just happened to get in a duel with the guy. So, seriously, do you think Sidney Bechet would settle for this type of cover with a kid dipping his hand in jam session? So, you know, it just goes to show, you know, record companies make strange decisions, and that's pretty odd. You know, I don't know the full story, but if somebody does, please let me know. But there are more historical records of record producers, label owners that have screwed with the artistic intent, and one of the most well-known ones in jazz is this one. So this is Miles Ahead, by Miles Davis plus 19. So this was his first really full-on work with Gil Evans and a ensemble of 19 other musicians. Personally, it's not one of my favorites. He also did work with Gil Evans on Sketches of Spain and Porgy and Bess. In my opinion, Sketches in Spain is probably the best and most notable. But so after Around Midnight came out, again, Miles Davis in this period, this is about 57. You know, he is not the artist that we know of today. I mean, you know, record labels are trying to sell records, and what better way to sell a record than to put a white woman on it with a little boy? You know, they can't make it look like it soon became, which was this guy right here. So Miles Davis supposedly complained to Columbia, the producer George Avakian, and said, "Hey, what's this white bitch doing on the cover of my album?" So, you know, take her off and put this one on. So, yeah, no one screwed with Miles again after that, at least not that I'm aware of. Now, other bands, you know, there's all kinds of stories, but, you know, one of the better known ones is this one here. So, Led Zeppelin 2. Now, this is probably the most, or one of the most sought after copies of Led Zeppelin 2. Why is that? This is known as the hot mix version. So, how do you know if you had a hot mix version? Let me explain. So there's a famous mastering engineer named Bob Ludwig. Very young at the time, they let him master this guy. And I'll let him tell the story.
I was working with Eddie Kramer at the time, and he was over at A&R mixing Led Zeppelin 2 8-track on the A&R 8-track console with 2 pan pots, I think it was. So he was cutting it at several places. He cut it with Dave Crawford and all that, and Dave had done a really good job on it. And he brings it to me and says, "Can you make it hotter?" And I said, "Well, let's try." And I worked and got it hotter, and I got the job. And that record, so I'm still really pretty young doing Led Zeppelin 2, right? And I lived just several blocks from Paul Rothchild, who was a very famous producer who produced all the Doors records. Paul had a hi-fi system at his house, so I took the Led Zeppelin pressing over to his house. I still have the original test pressing from Led Zeppelin 2 in my possession. And took it over to his house and played it from beginning to end. There was no skips, no nothing, and it was fine. So I gave my approval. Eddie Kramer gave his approval. The record got mastered, went to all the radio stations, no problem. And then when it got issued to all the general public, it turns out that because it was so hot, people with really cheap turntables, like Ahmet Ertegun's daughter, it would skip. And so Ahmet hears this and freaks out and has Atlantic Studio recut it from our EQ'd master. They cut all the bass out of it so that it wouldn't skip, and compressed it, and the thing sounded real puny and So to this day, the first edition of Led Zeppelin 2 records are real collector's items. I learned a lesson from that, and that when a producer says that, cut it hot, I don't care what happens, keep doing it.
So there you have it. So this is why this version, people are paying at least 3 figures for. And how do you know if you have one? Well, you look for an RL in the dead wax like this. And if you see this, and so whenever I run across a Led Zeppelin 2 in the used bins, this is something that I look for because, if you're a flipper, you can easily flip it, but I'm looking for a good, clean sounding copy. This is probably VG at best, but, it does have the dynamics that you would expect. So just be on the lookout when you're in the used bins and you see a copy of Led Zeppelin 2. So, hope this was helpful. Hope you enjoyed. Shoot me a comment if you'd like, and have a great week.